Hi, I am Jen Farley, and I believe that there is a rock star within all of us. So I'm going on the road and talking to people that I believe are rock stars in what they do. So today I am talking with my friend, Lisa Robbin Young, who is all the way in Mississippi and telling us all about the amazing things that she does. She is the founder of Ark Entertainment Media, and I'm so excited to talk to her. Welcome,
I'm
Lisa.
so excited. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for agreeing to do this.
Of course, of course.
Yay. So, Lisa, tell us what Ark Entertainment Media is and what it does.
Ark Entertainment Media is a business incubator and growth consultancy for creative entrepreneurs, specifically people who want to be, are ready to be the face of their brand, right? The celebrity in their niche, so to speak, and build a lasting legacy without having to sell your soul to do it. I've been in the online world for over 25 years. I've been a coach for about 15, 16 of those years. And more, what I have come to find is the more you are in your work, the more you attract the right people to you, the less resentment and overwhelm and frustration that you have in trying to run your business. And so we help creatives figure out how they're wired to work and then help them build a business that supports them having the life that they want in the way that they want to be working.
That's amazing. How long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this iteration of things for about 5 or 6 years. But like I said, I've been a coach for quite a while. This really came out of the work that I was doing for my last book. And in doing it, that's where I discovered this entrepreneur spectrum where we're wired differently. And that's normal and that's natural. And that's 100% exactly the way things are supposed to be. We are not all the same, even though we all have similarities and some commonalities. Right. But on one end of the spectrum, you have linear types who are very process driven, order is the rule of the day, and that's how they need their lives to be. But on the other end of the spectrum, you have what I call the chaotic creatives who are like, please do not give me a schedule or a budget because that will just create stress for me. That's a prison, right? And then somewhere in the middle of those two extremes are people like you and I, fusion creatives, who are like, well, I see the value and the benefit of both, and I love and hate both depending on the day, right? And so understanding how you're uniquely wired is really your best path forward. Instead of trying to be something that you're not, trying to force yourself into a mold that works really well for somebody else, but not for you, is only going to create more stress, more anxiety, more pressure. And that's why we do things differently.
Yeah. I mean, because creatives really have this stereotype of being like this artist and left brain versus right brain type of people, but that's not necessarily true.
Right. One of the things that I like to say is all entrepreneurs are creative, but not all creatives are entrepreneurs. And that's okay. You don't have to try and make a livelihood out of every creative thing that you do. And there's this wide swath, this huge spectrum of different types of creativity, all of which are valid, all of which are important. And, a lot of linears don't even identify, they don't even think of themselves as creatives, but I've met people who, come up with amazing intellectual property and they codify systems and they develop these frameworks. One of my favorites, Mike Michalowicz, he's a linear cusp type. So very much into systems and processes. And every one of his books is about a methodology or a process or something like that. And ultimately, his personality comes through. That's what makes him a chaotic or the cusp type. But, he's not going to work great in the chaotic realm that's more artsy and those kinds of things. He leans into the things that he does really well. He's very creative with methodologies. And he's finally at a point now where he recognizes, yeah, I am creative. But not everybody does. And my goal is to help people recognize, yeah, you are. Everybody's creative. You were born. You were created, therefore you are a creation and you are creative.
That's so interesting. I was going to ask you, what does creativity mean? What is the definition of creativity for you?
Yeah, so for me, creativity is about the things that are conjured from inside you. Different people are going to use different words, right? Like it's been channeled, or I figured it out, or my youngest son, it's just in my head. It just came out of my head, right? but we all have some type of a creative impulse, and it manifests differently for every person. Some people, their creativity is in home arts and they're really great parents and they're very innovative in the way they care for their kids. And I'm like, I do not have that skill set. I do not have that creative gift, right? My kids were lucky to make it through elementary school. But then there are the people that we typically consider creatives, who are the painters and the dancers and the fine artists and the performing artists of the world. And they have a much more visible, apparent creativity. But I don't think that creativity is limited to one type of expression. It's really an expression of whatever's coming out of you, whatever's being inspired through you. That to me is what creativity is.
I love that. I love that definition because it's very similar to the whole mentality of a rock star within you. Like we all have it within us.
Right?
It
Yes.
doesn't necessarily mean that it's just music or it's just art. It's like how you function in this world.
Yeah.
As well. So tell me how you got started. Tell me about your background.
Oh, well, going all the way back to the 1970s. I grew up in a blended family. My father was 55 when I was born. So he was already old by the time I was cognizant of what it meant to, be in community and in my family. And he was 24 years older than my mother. So they had 2 boys older than me before I was born, before they were even married. I mean, it's blended, mixed race. And, oh, hey, by the way, we lived on welfare. So this was a really rough, hard upbringing. Extended family, lots of love. I don't want it to sound like we were miserable. And at the same time, there was a lot of struggle. And I was about 10 years old, and I had been hustling for my quarters, as my dad liked to call it. I would wrangle up neighbor kids and charge them a nickel to watch me sing and dance. I started doing this when I was like 3 years old. And so I've been performing for a very long time. And when I was 10 years old, I'm from Flint, Michigan, and the band Ready for the World had their hit single, Oh Sheila. And I was just like, they're from Flint. I'm from Flint. Oh, if they can do it, I can too. I want to be a rock star. Like, that was my thing. I was like, I want to be a rock star. And my parents, well-meaning that they were, my dad never finished high school. My mom at that point hadn't finished college, looked at me and said, that's nice, sweetie, but you really need to have a fallback plan, which fallback plan to me meant, plan B. And I learned that it meant go to school, get a college education, and get a quote unquote real job with benefits and all of that stuff. And the older I got, the closer to high school graduation I got, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would I work so hard for 30 years on a gold watch to then go be able to do the thing that I really loved? So I graduated, I went to school. That had some drama that didn't quite work out. I eventually went back to school and I said, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to study what I want to do. And so I got a degree in music. Took a lot of business classes because I had heard lots of stories about people who were musicians that got taken for a ride by their management team or people that they trusted. And I'm like, that will not be me. And just started making my own music and performing and doing what I could wherever I could, instead of waiting to get picked. Because I mean, a person like me, and when I say that, I mean mixed race, especially now over 40, not the ideal supermodel figure. I have a lot of strikes against me as a performing artist that most people will go, you've got a great voice, but we're never going to cast you. We're never going to pick you. We're never going to hire you. And I'm like, fine, I'll pick myself. And over the course of doing that for myself, I've released 3 albums now. I've written a couple of books, working on more. And in the process of doing that, that's where people started coming to me going, how are you doing this? Can you show me how? Help me figure out how to do this for myself. And that's really where the business incubator came out of this around 2010, 2011. So it's been about 10, 11 years that we've had this focus. And then in the last 5 or 6 years, we've actually had a real business incubator to help cultivate and grow businesses.
I love that idea of I'm not waiting around for someone to pick me. I choose me.
Yeah. I'm kind of impatient to begin with, but I knew early because I've been this size and shape most of my life, even in high school. And, I went out for modeling auditions and was basically laughed out of the room. And, I would show up and I would sing and I would act and I knew I had nailed that part. I just knew I had nailed it. And I'm sorry, you're not what we're looking for. I'm sorry, you're not what we're looking for. And I'm like, well, there are people out there who are looking for someone like me. There are people out there who don't care what my body looks like. They want to hear my voice. They want to hear me sing. And so, my first tour, and I use that term loosely, but it was still a tour, was, coffee shops and venues in and around the Flint area where I showed up with my keyboard and, I got paid a few $100 to sing to whoever was in the room. And that funded the first album that I self-produced and went into a studio and recorded. And I remember printing it out on an inkjet printer, trying to get all the pieces together. And, I sold quite a few copies of those, old CDRs. And that led me to the next album and to the next album. And they progressively got better in terms of production value as well as performance value. And I think that's something that now that the barrier to entry is coming down in a lot of creative fields. I mean, you can shoot an Academy Award-winning movie on your iPhone now.
Right.
Now that the barrier is coming down, production qualities are improving. And there was a time when nobody would give you the time of day if you handed them a CDR. They're like, it's got a stick-on label and what? Regardless of what the quality was. So it was the same problem of judging the book by its cover instead of really getting into the contents. And now we have so many print on demand, produced on demand options available to us that you can do something that's pretty good quality to get started and not have to worry about what's this going to be due to my reputation. And so it's like, why wait? If ever there was a good time to really step into the dreams that you have for yourself, now's the time to do it because it's so much easier than it was 10 or 20 or years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and it's interesting too, because you're talking about like creating content before creating content was a thing.
Yeah, we talked before the interview started and I said, my first video, and it's still up on YouTube, my first video was 2008. And Facebook wasn't even a thing then. And, the face of social media and the internet landscape has evolved so much. I've been online for 25 years. I built one of the first ever e-commerce websites back in 1994 while I was still in college and coded the whole thing by hand. And I was so proud of this. But in the 25 years plus that I've been around the internet, it's like so much has changed. So much has evolved. So much has continued to change. But the one thing that doesn't change is people want to connect to people. People want to build relationships with people. So whether you're on Facebook now or YouTube 10 years ago or YouTube today, it's still about how are you showing up and letting people get to know who you are, what you stand for, what you're about in the world, and why they should care.
So let me ask, how do you connect with the feeling of being a rock star?
I think it depends on the day, in all honesty, right? Like there are times when I'm so in the zone and I'm like, I am like totally feeling it. And I'm like, I am a freaking rock star. And I can say it with confidence and not arrogance and really feel it and own it. And then I think there's most of the rest of the days of my life where I'm like, imposter syndrome really likes to take hold. It's like, really me? Like I have a channel that people actually watch. Like people actually enjoy the stuff that I create. People are actually reaching out to me and paying me to do the stuff that I love. Like that's a thing. Like really? And then there are other days when I'm like, see, I told you, family. I told you I could do that. Like there's just there's that mix that I think, and I think anybody who's in integrity with themselves is going to have those moments. Some more than others, but I think even Michelle Obama was like, of course, imposter syndrome. Hello, like it's a thing. We all have it. It's normal.
Right.
So It's a day-to-day. It's a practice. That's what I say.
Practice. I know. Sometimes I'm like, quick, cash the check before they find out.
Right. Right. Like, okay. All right. I'm going to do this right now before somebody changes their mind.
Right. You are so innovative in terms of the things that you have created and done. What do you see as the future of some of the digital things that you're working on and in the entertainment industry?
Yeah. So one of the things that I see on the horizon, and I mean, okay, let me back up. A long, long time ago, Sir Richard Branson stepped on a stage and cracked an April Fool's joke about a digital box that would put all of your songs, you could put all your songs on and listen to. And everybody was like, holy cow. And then he was like, April Fool. And not that long after, MP3 players and iPods and whatnot were rolled out. So when I say, here's what I see in the future, it's like the future is now, y'all just ain't heard about it yet, right? Like that kind of a thing. Like it hasn't hit the mainstream. And I'm not much of a futurist. So if I can see it, probably a lot of other people have already picked this up too.
You're an early adapter. by example of your 2008 videos and being on the internet for 25 years.
Right. So again, I want to reiterate that the thing that doesn't change is connection.
Yes.
Right. We want to connect. And in a world that is so laden with social media, online, electronic, all the time, on, what I'm actually seeing is a return to being with people in person, or smaller, more intimate gatherings, even in a digital space, because that connection is so important. And one of the things that we're doing in our business is we're remodeling the way that the incubator currently runs. And for those of your fans and followers who don't know, our incubator is a pay for results business model. So people come into this program to get business growth and supporting help, just like any other business incubator in the tech sector or, healthcare or something like that. The difference is we don't own a piece of the business. Mm-hmm. Instead, we work on a pay for results basis. So we come in and we help support growing the company. And then as you make money, we make money. And it's that kind of vested interest process that, allows us to work with clients. But the problem has been, we haven't been able to work with a lot of clients on a bigger scale because everything's so intimate and hands-on. Well, we've been doing it for about 5 years now, and we've found ways that we can actually increase the intimacy in working with the clients, but then scale up. And I hate to say that because it sounds like we're going to add 7,000 new people to this program, and that's not what we're doing here, but broaden the reach of who we can serve and how we can serve them by changing the way some of the things are delivered and taking better advantage of the online experience. Now that everybody's really familiar with Zoom, it's a thing now, being able to interact in real time and work with our clients in capacities that we haven't been able to before because they were either technologically challenged or technologically phobic or just not familiar. That really makes a difference. And going forward, I can see how using technology in this way is going to allow us and other companies to be able to make a bigger impact with the people who mean the most to us, and still do it in ways that allow us to grow our revenue, have healthy, profitable, sustainable businesses, and move towards building a lasting legacy. Because that's really the next step. You graduate from this incubator and okay, I've got this business that's profitable and sustainable. And for a lot of people, that's all they need, right? Pay the bills, keep the lights on, put some money away for retirement, life's good. Well, there are other people who are like, well, like you, who are like, no, I know I've got a mission and a message that's meant for a very large audience. How do I structure my business? How do I build things in a way that allows me to do that? And hey, I've got future generations I want to care for too. And not just in terms of the money that I want to leave to my kids, but also the body of work that I'm creating. I want it to impact lives well into the future, long after I'm gone. how do we do that? And so that's actually the book that I'm working on right now. And that's what I'm doing with some of the clients that have graduated from the incubator and helping them set their businesses up in a way that's going to provide that for them. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you. What has been some of the biggest successes with the incubator?
Well, one of my favorite stories is a client who came to me and they had been in business hobbling along for about 9 years, master at their craft, amazing at what they do. And after a few months of working together, we were able to actually get them to the point where they had made more money in 1 month than they had in the entire year prior of doing business. And then we went on to set them up to a six-figure annualized income. But that wasn't the most exciting part for me. The most exciting part for me was when they said to me, I was about to call it quits. I was about to throw the whole thing away and go live off my military disability check on a cheap island in the South Pacific and not have to worry about all of, trying to make ends meet because it's cheap there. But now I get to do the thing that I love. And people stop me on the street and go, oh my gosh, are you so-and-so? I love your work. And I'm like, that gets you right in the feels. And I'm like, now I can get up again tomorrow and do this all over again. It makes it worth it. It really does.
For some reason, I keep thinking about dreams, and I'm curious to know what your dreams are.
Oh, that's a deep question.
I know, right?
Oh, if I cry and the mascara runs, this is on you, Jen.
Just call me Barbara Walters.
Right. I like to tell when I'm cracking jokes, I'm like, I get paid to make people cry. That's what I do as a coach, But I mean, honestly, I have a couple of dreams. One of them is like the big, hairy, audacious goal, and that's to win the EGOT, right? The Emmy, the Grammy, the Tony, the Oscar. Like, I want them. My husband is a Grammy-nominated package designer who is not a musician in a lick. And I'm like, how is it he's nominated for a Grammy and I'm not? This is wrong. This needs to change. I'm picking myself. We're going to make that happen. So that's the big one. But, those pit stops along the way. I have 2 boys. Mm-hmm. Both of them are special needs in different ways. And I know that, and this is part of where the body of work that I'm currently working on comes from. I know that the way the world is set up right now, it's not set up to support them and help them be the best possible humans that they can be in this world. 40% of my clients are marginalized, oppressed humans who are dealing with disabilities or other container and capacity restrictions, and they just have to work that much harder for every shred of income and visibility that they get. And I look at my boys and I'm like, I want to know they're going to be okay. Yeah. I want to know that if this world crashes and burns on them, I've set them up for success. I've left them that legacy that's going to mean that they're going to be okay. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be, riding on yachts 24/7 and sailing around on their super yachts with their helicopters. And it does mean that if they want to go to school, they can. If they want to have a house, they can. If they want to have a car, they can. And these are the simple things that so many of us take for granted, that so many people do not have the luxury of being able to afford, and marginalized people are right there in the core of it, And if this is a way that I can take some of that burden off of them, then that's my dream. I don't want them to be burdened. I don't want them to have the same burdens that I had to carry for my most of my adult life too. I mean, it's been a journey. It's been a struggle, and it's yes, hard work builds character. That's true. But you shouldn't have to dig ditches to be a good human.
Yeah. What would you consider your Rockstar theme song? What is the song that embodies you?
This was a hard one for me, and I went back and forth several times. And I think for me, the song that I've been using as an anthem for the last couple of years is I Don't Want to Be. I don't want to be anything other than what I've been trying to be lately. That that whole idea of I just gotta be me, do me, and be more me.
Yeah.
And it's not about being selfish. It's about recognizing that I can let go of all the shoulds, all of the, you know what I would do if I were yous that were foisted on me for decades. And I can be like, you know what? I am a grown-ass woman. I am not a little kid anymore. I have decades of life experience and wisdom, and I know things that I didn't know back then. And I can stand confidently in this is what works for me. And if it doesn't work for me, it's okay for me to tell you that. And I don't have to tip on eggshells anymore. And, you know, the process of learning and growing into that has caused a lot of upheaval. You know, I ended up getting divorced. I ended up moving away from my family. I, you know, ended up letting go of a lot of things that just didn't fit for me anymore. And it was hard. But on the other side of that hard, I believe that there is a gift that is equal or greater to whatever hard you've come through. And it's bared out in my life time and time again. And I've seen it with my clients too. You got to get through the hard. And sometimes it is really excruciating. But man, when you get to the other side, I've married a man now who supports me, believes in me, trusts me in ways. He checks boxes I didn't even know I needed checked, you know, and that to me just speaks volumes of how much better I've gotten to know myself. And we can have clear communications. I have better relationships with my clients. I have better relationships with the people in the world around me because I know me better and I can be comfortable being me. And I don't take that privilege for granted, because even in my own client base, there are people who are, you know, especially in the climate of the world today, who it's life-threatening for them to just show up and be themselves fully and completely.
Yeah.
And who am I to be like, well, you know, I'm not going to be me because, you know, whatever. I'm like, nah, God wired me this way. It's my job to shine. It's their job to go find sunglasses if I'm too bright for them.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Can I share an observation?
Please do.
That it all stems from I choose me. Yeah. That mantra of I choose me, because you chose you and you believed in you. And now all the things are coming to you that you deserve. Yeah. Because you value yourself.
Yeah. But let's be really clear here. Okay. This is not a magical mantra that means everything is perfect, because as we're recording this, I am living in Mississippi and my husband has moved back to Nashville because he got a job up there, and we are waiting for the house to sell, and I have to live down here until the house sells. So this is not perfection. This is direction. And direction helps to guide your ultimate destination. I like to tell people success is a journey, or success is a destination, and you're already there. If you look around you, okay, whatever you see in front of you right now, this is success today based on everything that's come before it. And if you don't like what you see, you get to make new choices to see a different kind of success tomorrow. Doesn't mean it doesn't come with work. Doesn't mean you're always going to turn out the way you want it to. But you do have choices. You do have some semblance of control over some of the aspects of your life and your work that allow you to move closer and closer to your dreams on a daily basis. I firmly believe that. Yeah. You asked one question on your pre-interview sheet that I do want to answer, because I think it's important. I think one of the questions was like, what was the best piece of advice you were ever given, or something like that?
Yeah.
And I have two pieces of advice, one that was given to me and one that I discovered later. The first one, my mom gave to me. The answer is always no if you don't ask.
Oh.
And this is my life lesson. This is my life journey, because as a fusion creative, a person who likes to do all the things themselves, because, you know, we're good at a lot of different things and we don't think we should bother anybody else, asking for and receiving help is a challenge, right? It's the growing edge of a fusion creative. And so I just keep hearing my mom, the answer is always no if you don't ask. The answer is always no if you don't ask. But then the second piece of advice that I've really come to take to heart comes from my favorite singer of all time, and that's Judy Garland. And she said, it's better to be a first-rate version of yourself than a second-rate version of someone else. And again, it's about choosing yourself.
Yeah.
and not from a place of arrogance, right? It's from a place of recognizing, and I don't even want to say that I value myself, because imposter syndrome, self-esteem, it's a thing, but recognizing that as an individual human being on planet Earth, because I suck wind, I have value. I may not be fully able to grasp or embrace what it is on a day-to-day basis, but I know I'm here. I have value. I am important. I matter in some way, maybe in many ways, maybe to a few people, maybe to a lot of people, but I'm here. And that's not about arrogance. That's about owning the fact that I've been given the gift of life. What am I going to do to live up to that gift?
Yeah. And I think some people are so stuck in this cycle of why am I here versus like living their life.
Well, and the comparisonitis that comes along with that. Like, look at that person. They've got all these things and I don't. Look at, billionaire Mark Zuckerberg. He was a billionaire by the time he was, 20. And I'm in my 40s and I'm not a billionaire yet, and we get so caught up in what everybody else is doing. We forget to keep our eyes on our own paper and stay in our own lane. And that's not about, mind your own business so much as you have a direction, you have a thing that you're doing. Don't be bobbing and weaving all over the place, trying to be what somebody else is or do what somebody else is doing, unless it's a clear calling to you that is your next step. And if it is, then step into it. And if it's not, then stay in your lane. Mm-hmm. Keep your eyes on your own paper.
Yeah. And not only that, but your outcome of success is going to be different than anyone else's.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a story I tell about a colleague of mine. We were contemporaries early in my internet marketing journey. And it was like she was everywhere. She was at every conference. There were pictures of her at every major event. And I'm like you could not escape this person's face. And I was like, you're like everywhere. You're like a freaking rock star. This is so amazing to see you doing all of this. And inside I was like, why is she getting all of this attention and I'm not? What's wrong with me? And I recognized, I learned years later, she was willing to do things that I was not willing to do, like put a second mortgage on her house without telling her husband. And she pulled all this money out of the house and spent it on all of these events that she was attending. She was going and being seen and going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into debt, and not keeping her partner informed. And eventually she ended up having to leave the internet marketing world and go back to a day job. She lost her husband and they lost the house.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what somebody else is choosing to do to make their story appear the way that it is.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm like, I don't want you to think that I've got everything all figured out over here, because Lisa does not have everything all figured out. Lisa is still figuring out as she goes, just like every other human being on the planet. Do I have some things figured out? Sure. And that's why I help other people, so that they don't have to have the same learning curve that I did. But I'm in this journey just like everybody else. And anybody who tells you otherwise is selling you something.
It's honestly, though, it's like that Instagram filter of like, my life is perfect. Everything's great. I'm so pretty. But yeah, you don't see the crap behind the camera on the other side.
Right. I was telling you, and I'm going to be full disclosure, I'm like, all the pretty things that you see behind me are just sitting there right now because I haven't packed them in a box yet, because I knew this interview was happening. And as soon as this interview is over, it's all going in a box. This is all for show. This is all for show. And I think there's a time and a place where that's appropriate. Yeah. I think when you're trying to show up as your best self, there's a time and a place for the appropriate fixtures. Mm-hmm. But if you have built this fantastic tapestry of lies around everything being perfect, you're selling yourself a bill of goods, not just your potential clients.
So how can people contact you or get in touch in order to work with you? Like, who are your clients? Who are you looking for?
Well, I'm always ready to work with any creative on the spectrum, from the chaotic to the very linear. Fusions are my jam because I am one, but I built this system, so I know it all pretty well. And especially folks who are like, that's me. I want to be the celebrity in my niche. I want people to stop me on the street. I want to spread my message. I've got stuff that the world needs to hear about, and I'm ready to start doing that. If that's you, or you know somebody who is like that, send them my way. I am Lisa Robbin Young on like every platform. Robbin has 2 B's though. If you spell it with 1, you won't find me. So LisaRobbinYoung.com. I'm Lisa Robbin Young on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I'm not on TikTok yet, guys. Like, I will, full disclosure, I'm not. That's one more thing I just do not have the spoons for. Maybe in 2022, but not right now.
I was not going to get on TikTok and accidentally got on TikTok.
See, that's my fear.
I accidentally did it, but I accidentally did it.
Yeah, that's my fear. I have a client who's like, "Are you on TikTok?" I'm like, "Nope." And they're like, "Well, will you look at my TikToks?" I'm like, "I'm afraid to." Yeah. Not because of you, but because of what that means for me. If I go to TikTok,
oh yeah,
I will never come back. They will have to go send out a search party.
Yeah. Yep. Because I am trying to learn those damn dances.
Well, and here's this is an interesting, like, let's put the marketing lens on, right? TikTok is so good at the algorithm of figuring you out, like spooky good, that I'm like, I don't think I want to give them that first bite. I don't want anybody else to know me better than I know me. Like, that's my control freak right there. Like, no thanks.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Especially in the day and age we live in, because everything's an algorithm.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm surprised. Well, I'm not entirely surprised that somebody in the States hasn't snapped up TikTok yet. Just because of how good the algorithm is and what it could potentially be used for in other ways. I think it's only a matter of time. But I mean, it's scary accurate. And that just still just a little nervous. Mm-hmm. Not an early adopter in that respect.
There's only so many things you can do, Lisa.
Well, that's true too.
Yeah. So you have 3 albums, you said, and 2 books.
Yes, I do. You cannot buy the first album anymore. It is long out of print. You might be able to find a copy on eBay. I saw somebody selling one for like $500, and I'm like,
yeah,
you're never going to sell it, but I'm so excited to see that. But you can buy my albums on iTunes, Amazon. You can buy my books on Amazon or on my website. So they're around.
Well, thank you so much for your time and your information. And, I'm taking away this believing in yourself and choosing me.
Yes.
Idea. And it's worth it. You're worth it.
You're worth it. That's the thing. You're worth it. So thanks for having me, Jen. It was definitely a pleasure.
Thanks, Lisa.